Alrighty ho. Good afternoon. I hope this vlog live podcast episode on overwhelm and anxiety finds you well, guys. I decided to do this because I have seen this week that many people in my arena are feeling overwhelmed and anxious and are struggling. So I thought I'd do a slightly longer version of my question of the week this week, in the hopes that I can add it to my podcast, in the hopes that this will be something that I can refer people back to, particularly when it comes to overwhelm, because it's the thing that I'm seeing more and more in the women that come to me, which is such a shame, because it doesn't have to be that hard. So if you're watching this live, let me know. If you're watching this later on, let me know. I'm just going to type here. I'm going to ask the question. What does overwhelm mean for you? I'm going to just put that in the group where I am going live. So if you're watching this later, let me know. It would be lovely to know if anything that I'm saying resonates with you and what overwhelm means for you, like you as just an individual human. Because what I tend to find is that so many women feel alone in their experience of overwhelm or anxiety. Many people I know make their world very small, and they carry this sort of burden and guilt and shame around their anxiety or their overwhelm, and they don't share it with anyone, and people wear a mask and they pretend everything's okay, and very often it's not. So the reason I like to place a comment, if you feel brave enough to share wherever you see this vlog, I think you'll find that a lot of people will resonate with you, and you'll feel less alone. That's also why I have my circle community and my free Facebook group, exactly for that reason. So, overwhelm, what is it? When I looked this up in the dictionary, what I got was that you are drowning beneath a mass of something, or swamp. The swamp, overwhelm, swamp. And people will say in a dictionary, and I've heard this is what it says in the dictionary: to overcome, to feel completely overcome in mind or feeling, i.e., I feel overwhelmed with guilt, or I feel overwhelmed by money, or I feel overwhelmed by my thinking, or whatever the thing is that you're feeling overwhelmed by. I particularly like the word swamp, and those that know me well will know why I like it, but that's potentially a video for another time. So I'm guessing lots and lots of you, if you're listening to this, have experienced overwhelm, have experienced anxiety. And again, I'd love to, I'd love to hear from you. What are those things? What are the things that make you feel overwhelmed? What are the things that make you feel anxious? And I think from my own experience of dealing with chronic anxiety, PTSD, overwhelm, the thing that was very common for me, or the kind of clue, if you like, the hint in my body, was that I'd feel this sort of urgency. I'd feel heightened. I'd feel hypervigilant, like I was, personally speaking, an example of someone who was completely overwhelmed by everything to do, my to-do list and everything that I had to do. But also my feelings. I was overwhelmed by my feelings, and as such, what I then became was a control freak. I wouldn't have said that I was a control freak. Lots of people told me I was a control freak. But now looking back, I can really see that there were things that I had to have in place in order to enable me to feel safe with that level of thinking that I had at the time. And I think overwhelmed, of that feeling of overwhelm, is just a fantastic example of what happens when you take your thinking very, very seriously. When we energize and give life to every single thought that comes into our mind, which quite literally overloads the system. So, this is also an interesting kind of inquiry, like, are you overwhelmed or are you overloaded? Like, how many to-do lists do you have at any one time? Are you ever going to get through any of the to-do lists? Or do you just keep making another to-do list and then another to-do list? One of the clues I find with the women that I work with, if I can see that they're overwhelmed, is that they're forgetful. And then they slag themselves off for being forgetful. And of course, for myself and lots of women who are similar ages to me or slightly older, we're menopausal. And so then that can lead also to overwhelm, but it's our thinking. Our thinking is what we're overwhelmed by. And the more overwhelmed we are, the more anxious and stressed we can become. And this really does impact on the quality of your life. And I know this because I lived in this place for many, many years. And as a result, I experienced many, many physical symptoms. For example, alopecia and bad skin. And I had IBS, and I had blepharitis. So lots and lots of skin issues was how it showed up for me, and tummy issues, sometimes causing me quite chronic pain and being quite paralyzed by it. Whereas a lot of other women that I've spoken to, it can manifest in other ways. For example, pain, fibromyalgia, adrenal fatigue, unexplained pain, arthritis, inflammation in the body, because stress really is the biggest factor, I think, on dis-ease in our bodies. That's my personal opinion. I've studied this for many, many, many years over my various careers in my life. And I just want to explain the principles that I speak to. Those of you that have come to my community via the Principles community, you'll have an idea of what the principles are. But many of the women in my community I'm speaking to, the kind of everyday woman, may not have heard about the principles. So I want to just explain to you about the principles, which is the foundation of what I teach and what has been transformational in my own life and in the lives of the clients. If you look back on any of the podcasts I've done with any of the clients that I've worked with, you'll see them talk about and articulate this transformative understanding, which has brought them so much more peace and ease in their life. So I just want to give you a little example of what they are. Principles are principles. They are the truth. Okay, these are factual principles. So they are working in every single human being, whether you know it or not. So most people don't know this, and so life becomes very difficult. It becomes overwhelming. We can get very stressed and very anxious if we don't know how we work. And because we live in a society that sort of promotes this outside in paradigm, i.e. you need to get something outside of you to be okay, with whatever the form that looks like for you. It's like, you may have heard me speak about the teddy bear analogy. There's a video that's pinned on my Instagram. If you want to search for that in my Facebook, the teddy bear analogy, it's like the teddy bear is outside of us, right? And when we were kids, some of us had a teddy bear or a dummy or a comforter of some description. And we would take the teddy bear and feel settled and feel calmer. And so we kind of innocently made the association, and our parents reinforced that. Here you are, have a teddy bear, or here you are, have a treat. And we would feel better, or we'd calm down. But that teddy bear is outside of us. It's our relationship to the teddy bear or the treat that changes our experience, because the teddy bear in and of itself is a stuffed toy. It cannot change your experience. So it's coming from the inside out. So as I've said, there's a longer vlog exactly speaking to that, if you want to have a look for that, the teddy bear analogy. Now, the 3 principles are mind, consciousness, and thought. And it doesn't really matter what label you put to them, because ultimately they're a metaphor. They're principles, as gravity is a principle of nature. We can't see gravity. It's formless. It's a principle of nature. It's there and it's the truth, whether you see it or you don't. But we all know, and we've learned this, we've got an embodied understanding of gravity. If I drop this, if I let go of this, this is going to fall to the ground. We know that. We don't question it. So the 3 principles, mind. Mind is the universal divine intelligence behind all of life. It's like what has us all here. I've just been to the beach. I just walked my dog, Asher, and I saw the murmurations of the birds. You know, they make beautiful patterns over the sea. And how do they know how to do that? Like, what is the miracle of that? I found a swan feather on one of my walks in the last few weeks, and I looked at this beautiful feather, and I looked at the tip of this beautiful feather, and I sort of looked at this in wonder that, you know, the divine intelligence makes that for the swan perfectly. And we are all perfect, and the seasons just happen without us having to interfere with anything. So that's what Sydney Banks, whose work, 3 principles, you know, is based around. He called mind, some people call God, some people call the universe, some people call source. Like, it doesn't matter. It's, again, it's a metaphor. It's pointing you to something that's true, whether you want to argue with me or not. This isn't a religious thing. This is like, yeah, my hair grows, I don't have to do anything. My food digests, I don't have to do anything. I've made a baby. That's pretty miraculous as far as I'm concerned. And he's, you know, turned out to be, you know, a human in his own right and healthy. So there's an invisible, formless energy which we all have. We are a part of nature. We're not separate from nature. We're a part of nature. The second principle is something called consciousness. It's our awareness. If you just want to think about it like that, it's just, you know, the fact that I'm awake, I have this experience, I'm talking to you on this screen now, so I'm having an experience of that. If you're listening to me, you're having an experience of listening to my words. If I were to watch a sad film, I'd have an experience of sadness. That's what consciousness is. It's like your awareness. It's what brings thought to life. And the third principle is thought, the principle of thought. And I say that with a capital T. It's the creative energy, the creative formless energy that creates your personal thinking. So I'm not talking about thought like, oh, look, there's a dog. Oh, look, there's a postman. Oh, what shall I have for dinner? It's not that kind of thought. It's the creator of that thought. Those things are universal. And I just want to use a metaphor to help this kind of make sense for you. So imagine you've got a DVD player. Hopefully most of you will know what a DVD player is. I know that they're not really used that much anymore, but I'm sure you can have a visual of the DVD player. Mind is like the energy source that you plug the DVD player into. So you cannot have, it will not work without the electricity. So imagine that mind or source is that electricity that's powering everything. We're all powered by that divine intelligence. So DVD player, plug it in, electricity, that's like mind, okay? Consciousness, the awareness, is like the actual DVD player. You need consciousness to bring thought to life, just like you need the DVD player to bring the film to life. We wouldn't be able to watch the film if we didn't have the actual DVD player. Now, thought, the principle of thought, is the film that we put into the DVD player. We experience in every moment whatever film we are watching, right? And you'll have an experience of going to the cinema and being, you know, in that movie with those characters, if it's acted well. Many, or most of us, live in the experience of a movie in our head. So, for example, I was talking to a client this morning, and she was experiencing a lot of anxiety and overwhelm around an event that's happening today. And she was experiencing her thinking as worrying and, you know, traumatizing. And she was going into all these futuristic movies about what could happen in the future. But she's thinking that now, she's experiencing it now in this very moment. Or she was when she was leaving me a message. That's a movie that she's playing out. Another example I can give you is I used to suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and part of that would manifest as flashbacks. I would have flashbacks about my experience that happened in my life. And that went on for 20 odd years, where I would get triggered. I'd see a motorbike, and every time I saw a motorbike, I would go into this movie that was playing in my mind that was about the past, my past experience, but I was experiencing it now in the moment that I saw the motorbike. And as soon as I realized, I sort of woke up to the fact that, oh my gosh, that's just a movie and it's not happening and it's not real. It feels real because it's in our own mind. I realized I didn't have to follow that thought train anymore. And then something else happened where I'd kind of gotten over that, had an insight, I'd experienced a new thought around that, and I wasn't suffering with it anymore. And my son got himself a car, and he went off for the day, and he said he'd be home at a certain time. And in my mind, it got to near the time that he was due to be home, and I started to experience this scared, these thoughts that were creating a movie about, he's now died in an accident, the police have come to my door, and I'm experiencing, and it was so real, but it was my thinking, it was my thoughts that were creating that reality for me in this moment. And I was frozen in terror. And then I suddenly realized what was happening. And I kind of woke up out of this daymare, because dreams are made of the same stuff, nightmares are made of the same stuff. I woke up out of this daymare, and then Zach walked in through the door. And I was like, oh my God, we have our own mega special effects 3D department in us. So the reason I'm telling you about these principles, and what do they have to do with overwhelm, is because, is your overwhelm real, Or is it you're thinking and then you're paying attention to all these thoughts and creating these stories which become super heavy and feel super real? So whilst your circumstances may be real, that obviously, it's your thinking about the circumstances that gives you the experience. And that's often very difficult for people to get their head around because they'll argue with me using their intellect. So I'm sure many of you are arguing with me now, and that's okay. You know, I used to argue as well with the people that were trying to teach me this, because you're talking about formless principles. I'm like, it's not a 5-step to overcoming overwhelm. It's much simpler than that. It's understanding that when we pay attention to lots and lots of thoughts and lots of scary thoughts, and we're predicting the future with our brain, which is what our brain wants to do from a survival perspective, that's what it will do. We feel those thoughts now, only ever now, in this moment. We don't ever feel them in the future, and we don't feel them in the past. But the past we can carry with us into this moment. It's a thought carried through time, which is a memory. The future hasn't happened, so any future-based movie is made up in my head based on my experience of the past. It's all coming from the brain. Now, I realize you might think I'm speaking, double Dutch. And believe me, for a long time, I thought my teachers were speaking double Dutch. And for those of you that put your hand up to listen to me being coached by two of the teachers in this field, will have seen me chronically anxious, chronically stressed, chronically overwhelmed, physically unwell, all the symptoms that I spoke about in the beginning, I was experiencing. If you haven't seen that video of me being coached in 2018, please let me know, and I will send you the video, but I will do that privately. So my feelings can only last as long as my thoughts last. So if I get you to, think of a happy memory, like think of the happiest memory that you've got, and now try and feel sad. It will be very difficult to do that. Your thought and feeling are two of the same, they're the same side of the coin. They're not any different. And you cannot have a feeling without a thought. It just doesn't work that way. But of course, a lot of thoughts are unconscious. But again, that's I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. That's potentially a story for another time. So we were designed for thoughts just to flow through us all the time. It's like the ticker tape on a TV. When you're watching the news, you've got that ticker tape at the bottom, and some of it's highlighted in your mind and some of it you just don't take any notice of. That's how we were designed, for everything to flow through, like your blood flows through the heart, but it is not the heart. Right? Your thoughts were meant to flow through your mind and create your experience just like a river. But we are not our thoughts. They are not us. And when we get caught up in the content of our story, which a lot of people do, they get caught up in the content and then they make it mean something about them. Usually, I'm not good enough, or I'm getting life wrong, or whatever. That's when it becomes swampy. That's when we get stuck in the mud. That's when we feel overwhelmed. Now, because of this research in neuroscience is telling us that your brain is reflecting everything that you know in your life. It is a record of your life, of your environment. And so if you're doing the same things every day and having the same thoughts every day, you're going to be activating the same stress response mechanism. Innocently hardwiring your brain to specific patterns that reflect our external world. And so a lot of people in their overwhelm feel stuck, feel swamped, feel like they're in Groundhog Day. But you don't have to change anything in your external world for your life to be different. You just have to see that you're experiencing your thinking. And I just want to give you 2 examples of clients who've spoken to me about an insight that they've had just around this, because I think these 2 examples are really, really good. One example is a client was, she put her car in for an MOT and she's walking along the river and enjoying the sunshine and she's having a wonderful time and no thinking about her car. And she gets a telephone call from the garage and they've said, oh, really sorry, your car's failed its MOT, it's going to be this much. And all of a sudden, she's gone from being content and peaceful and looking around and enjoying the sunshine and enjoying the river to, like, in her mind, worrying about how she's going to get the car fixed, worrying about how she's going to pay for the car fix, not present in any way. Suddenly that stress response has been activated and it's like we speed up, right? We literally speed up. We speak fast, we're thinking all the time, like we're trying to figure it out. And then 5 minutes later, the garage phoned her back and said, oh, I'm so sorry, we made a mistake. Your car hasn't failed its MOT. It's passed. Everything's absolutely fine. It's ready to collect whenever you come, whenever you're ready. And she's like, oh my gosh. And she realized that for those 5 minutes prior to receiving the second phone call, she'd gone into the worst case scenario and was suddenly not even aware of the river and the sun, because she was no longer present, because she went into worried, anxious thinking. Another example, just to quickly sort of go back to that, nothing in her external world had changed, nothing at all. Only her thinking had changed. She's still walking along the river, the car's still at the garage, nothing has changed. Her thinking changed because of something external. But how we as a human race with a brain that is a machine will go to the worst case scenario. It always happens. Now, another example, which I thought this was a brilliant example, because so many women I know struggle with body image. They have habitual thinking that they're fat, that they're going to start tomorrow, that they're going to do this, that, and the other, and that they'll be better and happier when they're thin, quote unquote thin, like whatever that means for you. This particular lady was at work and she put her dress on, she was feeling good, and that was unusual for her. So she was like, yeah, I feel great and I'm kind of working it. And she went and sat down at her desk and she's doing some work, and a colleague comes and walks to the desk, and when the colleague was talking to her, my client thought or experienced that this woman looked at her stomach and then looked up. And in that moment, my client, who felt good and confident and happy in her skin and comfortable in her own skin, suddenly got the feeling, the thought, I'm fat. And in that moment, nothing had changed. In that moment, she felt fat and went into herself and into overwhelm and into self-concern and into anxiety and into like constriction. But nothing had changed. Only her thinking had changed. So if you can just get a feel for what I'm saying, I'm not saying that circumstances can't be challenging and traumatic. And I'm not saying that. I've experienced very, very, very challenging circumstances, traumatic circumstances in my life out of my control. I'm not saying that those things don't happen and won't happen. But what I am saying is that you don't have to be broken because of them. You don't have to experience overwhelm because of them. you don't have to believe that you're broken because of them. It can pass through you if you don't add on, if you understand that you're experiencing your thinking rather than reality. You're experiencing your thinking, not your circumstances. All right. So, yeah, I don't know if anyone's watching this. I don't know if anyone is listening to this live. I realize this has gone on longer than I normally would, but the reason I wanted to do it and just talk to you a bit more in depth about overwhelm is, as I said, it's something that I hear so often, and often when I do these mini vlogs, if you like, I never really talk about the principles. I don't kind of even name them, but I thought it might be helpful for anybody listening or anybody who's new to what I'm saying to just get a feel for what I'm saying, these sort of formless principles, so that you can see how much ease you can get from your life. Because the more frantic our thinking, it's a bit like Velcro. The more frantic my thinking, the more thoughts I have, the more frantic I feel, the less I have wisdom and clarity and peace of mind. We speed up, right? That's what we as human beings do. It's what I used to do in every single way. Imagine when you're on the computer and it suddenly freezes and you get that circle of doom, the spinning wheel of doom, like, oh my God. I mean, this would have absolutely in the past completely stressed me out when I saw that wheel of doom, because I would have had a timeline on what to finish, my things, and I worked in hourly slots and everything was a rush, and I never really had any sense of peace of mind before this. But what we actually have to do in that scenario is reset the computer or reboot the computer, because potentially the computer is overloaded, and then that resets it, and then it's back to being working fine. And if you can get a sense that you don't have to do anything, you don't have to add on anything in your life, you just kind of have to see that it's thought, that it's energy moving through you, that we are the ones that is giving it the energy or the life. We are the ones. And that once you see that, you can kind of reboot yourself, because you can have any experience in any moment. And recognizing that you are feeling your thinking 100% of the time helps you to reset. And you can do this at any time, despite your circumstances. And actually, it's being gentle with yourself and loving with yourself is often what most people don't do, and they're not that's not a habit. Their habit is to beat themselves up, and part of that creates the overwhelm. So I hope that was helpful. What I want to say, just to sort of close this off, is that the kindness of the design is that you will always feel urgent or anxious or agitated or overwhelmed, because that's your body's way of trying to wake you up to the fact that your thinking has become sticky and swampy and heavy, and it's not the truth. It's not the truth. And if you can just really listen in to what you really want to do, not the billions of to-do lists, Listen in to your own self. Listen in to your yes and your no. Listen in to her, that wiser part of you that we all have. It's much easier than you think, or that you've known until now. And multitasking, which is women like pat themselves on the back for, is just part of that. It's part of, often we make the overwhelm worse by trying to do 50 things at once. We're never present to one thing. And I genuinely think that's a habit for a lot of women. But again, that's another podcast episode, I think. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely weekend. I do have a free 5-video vlog series called Comfortable in Your Own Skin, which you are welcome to download. If anybody wants to watch the session of me being coached in 2018 when I was experiencing chronic stress, overwhelm, anxiety, PTSD, and many of the physical symptoms that I've alluded to, then just send me a message and I will send you that video, and you'll be able to see the difference between me then and me now. And that is purely and simply through learning about the principles initially, and then the energetics at a deeper level. So I will leave you there. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.